Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Facts and Two Cents with PMP Pamela here, and
Paddle.
yes, and you won't believe, but we will tell the story behind this episode sometime later. But we are back, and today's conversation is going to be on what has been happening this whole week and last week. So a lot has taken place. Prince Harry and Oprah Winfrey have come up with this amazing docuseries, which we are going to touch on. It's so huge. I think it needs like its own a few episodes on it, but we're going to try to do it justice this week, this episode, and just highlight certain things and other pointers as well. And we also want to talk about Princess Diana's interview with Martin Bashir and the responses from her two sons, right? Prince Harry and the other one.
The other brother. We shall not be.
We might mention his name, but right now I'm going to call him the other brother.
I have a new name for him though. I call him Royal Tory.
Royal Tory.
Royal Tory Prince William.
Yeah. But our channel, and I think I'm glad we're doing this now, our channel is all about our faves, about Harry and Meghan and Archie. And so
Baby Montecito.
Yes, but Sister Squad has been calling her Lady Montecito.
Lady Montecito. Okay, I stand corrected.
That's her lady. Lady Montecito, Mama Doria, Pula, and Guy. These are our faves.
And the chickens, you can't forget the
chickens.
Oh,
and the chickens, yes. And the well-feathered chickens. They're healing very well because, the Sussexes are taking really, really good care of them. So those are the people and things we care about. The show is, we're petty. And also, what are we again? We're petty.
Biased.
Yes.
Very biased.
We're very biased. So I saw a few comments. Somebody was like, decided not, well, did you see that comment on the show? When she was like, you guys are too biased. And we're like, okay, we did say that. We said that. Like, come on. That's a waste of your energy to even respond and say, yeah. Like, okay.
I told you we own our bias. We weren't hiding it.
All right. We're not changing our minds. We're biased and we're petty. Our faves, Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Here we go. So today, before we start, we want to say a big thank you to all the people, amazing people who have chosen to follow us, decided to follow us. We are grateful. We are so appreciative of it. Not in our wildest dreams did I think overnight from like, 10 followers? No, that's not 10 followers. We'll go to like almost 800 in a couple of days. That for me and Pedal is
that's a little shocking.
That's a little shocking to us. That's great. But we owe this to, and I want to say thank you to Sister Squad Podcast, Michelle and Tina. Tina for definitely, when I messaged her about it, she took a look at it and she just promoted us like crazy. And then on her podcast, she, brought us up again and showed a clip of us and then the link. She posted it and said, go follow them, and really gave us the props and thank you. Oh,
yes, thank you.
Petal said she's going to give you her first child.
So just prepare a room. You're going to have a child at some point.
I don't know if I'm going to give you my first child, but I will buy you a condominium or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll do the condo too. But thank you guys. Thank you ladies so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And you sent over the most wonderful people. I've been like,
I know. Sister Squad, they are so supportive. It's like, man, I saw someone trying to come for us and they run that person out. I was just like, oh, I didn't even have to say nothing.
You guys,
by the way, can you see my t-shirt? It says,
Oh, she raised the sessions of success. Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So anyways, yeah, so they're like, no. And I think we do that for each other, right? So when I'm on someone's page or somebody comes for them, I'm like, I take it on and
Get
I'm
out.
like
Yes.
defending them. So it's something that we just do automatically, defend each other and protect each other. So we are so grateful. Thank you so
Thank you, buddies.
yeah, Squatties, you're awesome. All right, great. So let's go on, move on to the topics. Let's go to the me you can't see. First of all, that title is awesome because if you think about it, we all walk around and we show what people need to see. Unless it's very visible, you can't tell what's going on in the person's mind, right? That
Right.
is also part of them, right? So it doesn't define that person, but it is part of them. So it's like the part of me that you can't see, which is something that I want to share with you, or, kind of like that kind of conversation. It would be a very good lead-in conversation, to be honest with you. It's like, hey, the part of me that you don't see or know, I want to share that with you. And that could be a very good sort of conversation. But before you saw the show, what were your thoughts when you heard of it, and then what were your thoughts after you saw it?
It's so weird because at first when I heard about it, obviously like, great, Harry and Oprah doing. I mean, we've known about this documentary for like 2 years, so we knew it was coming, and they had talked about it earlier in the year as well. But I definitely didn't expect this. I've seen shows before. I've seen, whether it's on talk shows, even Oprah's shows, a lot of it comes across as therapy. Dr. Phil's show, I've seen these shows, on television before. So I was kind of thinking it might be something like that. I've never really sat through and watched the entire show. And especially if it's not something that is, say, related to me or something that I've ever experienced, for example, schizophrenia, something like that. So I've never really sat there and thought outside of what my experience is. I never sat there and thought of, okay, well, let me listen so I can hear someone else's story. And I never thought of it in terms of someone else's story, because they have a story to tell that even if I don't, it's not something that I've experienced. I want to listen to you so I know your experience, so I can know how to meet your needs just in case, somebody in my life desperately need me, and then I can, be able to help that person. So for me going into it, that is where I came from. And then I did not expect the depth. I did not expect the rawness. I did not expect the just even, for example, again, like say schizophrenia, like to sit there and listen to and really pay attention to someone else's story and empathize with their pain, even though we may not have the same struggles or the same pain or the same grief, whatever, but I could empathize on a human level that whatever the situation is, there is pain there. And I can empathize on a human level in that way. And that's why I came across with that. No matter what the specific situation was, I can still feel that person's pain. I could still listen to their story and be there, even though I may not have the words to, to help them. But I can still be there and just be there. Even if I just have to sit with the person and be there. That is okay. And that's what I came across with a whole different level of thinking about mental health and a whole different respect for it. Because I never really think about my mental health. I know I'm sad. I know that I'm whatever, but I never really thought of it on that deep a level, and how there's just a thread that runs through all of us that we can relate to in some way. I will never be the same after that, the way I think about this. So that's what I came across.
That was great. I think for me, it was, we were all excited, the Squatties, we were preparing for it. I was like, come on, waiting for that day to come. I knew personally that just knowing how Oprah and, does production is going to be excellent, right? So that I knew. I think I was wondering how Prince Harry was going to show up in it in terms of what role, right? It wasn't a concern, but I was curious, how he's going to show up. Boy, did he show up. Man, that guy needs to own his own talk show. Well, just kind of know him, but you know what I mean? Like, he asked questions and he managed that whole thing, his part, so well. Like the way he was able to lean into saying questions and really jump in and ask, hey, Oprah, give me a minute. I just want to follow up with that question. And it was just amazing. The questions he was asking were very, if you listen to his questions, you can realize that we're coming from the things that he's always talked about when it comes to mental health and mental wellness, right? And one of the part that really stood out to me is that there's mental health and then there is mental wellness. And then there's the in between where the spectrum, most of us exist in there, right? And that could be somebody who has trauma with either rape, abuse, divorce, loss of jobs. Like those people, those are in that space, and that is also PTSD. You can get PTSI. It's a PTSI, right? I want to start using Prince Harry's term, post-traumatic, injury.
Post-traumatic injury instead of post-traumatic disorder.
Yeah. And where, a lot of us reside. It could be an abandonment issue. It could be a breakup, whatever the case may be, that you need to really talk through it and heal, because it is a shock to your system. It impacted your mind and your thought process, and it does hurt. There's emotions. If there are emotions, then there is some issue that needs to be dealt with. And maybe you don't need a huge you don't need to be on medication, like I'm trying to say, but you could just need to talk to a friend, do a staycation somewhere if you can afford it, go to the park, read a book that makes you happy, like something, talk to a friend, see a therapist. But there's so many things that you can do to just reset yourself so that way you can manage those things. I think that was really, that makes sense to me when I watched that. That's one of the things I got from it, I should say. And I was so impressed by the whole production. And I know we're going to talk through it a little bit, but just the whole thing, you can either relate to it personally or somebody or realize that these are tools that you can take on. So the next time you see something or hear something, you're able to just even listen, right? Prime example for me, I was in the gym the other day and this guy comes in. We have never seen him in the gym at that time before. And he was just talking to himself. And you know what my first instinct was? Is to be critical. I was like, what is he doing? And I was like, calm down. What happened to him? And once that thought came to my mind, I simmered down a bit. You know what I mean? I just like, okay, all right. He's not hurting anybody. He's just talking to himself. Like, and acting a little bit out of norm, but who's to say that was abnormal? You know what I mean?
Perfectly normal for him.
Yeah, but it was normal for him. And he's just doing his workout. Obviously, he paid his membership and he's coming to the gym, to work out. And if he chooses to talk to the machines, good for him. And so, yeah, but then, so I'm saying that that's one of the tools that you can get. I at least got from it that I'm not, when I see something that's out of norm, out of the ordinary, that I don't go ahead and react, except a few, royal reporters, which I'm still working on. So they know who they are. So we know what happened to them.
Yeah. Well, even going into them, I mean, for example, Angela Levin and Camilla Tominey and Penny Jr. especially is, right. As we were talking, they are three women who have experienced trauma. They have experienced incredibly, especially childhood trauma. Yeah. Angela Levin with an abusive mother, Camilla Tominey with her alcoholic mother. I mean, I remember one of the things Camilla Tominey, I think, and I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit, one of the things she said is that she couldn't understand why her mother couldn't stop drinking. So I think she said that's one of the things that plays on her mind, why her mom couldn't stop drinking so that they can, I think, have a great relationship or something like that. And
it's a disease. Like, alcoholism is a disease.
And then Camilla was also an alcoholic, and and she said she has stopped now, and it made her, it's made her a better person, but she clearly has not dealt with the trauma because she is perpetuating the same abuse on other people in different ways. The same thing with Penny Juno, whose father was he used to run the Express. While he was this big boss and stuff at work, he was very abusive at home. Her brother drank himself to death. Her father was an alcoholic. And really, he went so far as to even torture Penny's husband, and Penny Juno literally says that she was glad her father died when he did, because she dreaded the fact that if he got older, she would have to take care of him.
Oh
that is how bad it was, and she wrote about it. She wrote a book about it, and she experienced some of the same pushback that she is doing to Harry right now.
Yeah.
And so when you see these people are attacking and like, why are you, and it's like, but you went through the same traumas. You went through those childhood abuses. You wrote books about it. You wrote articles about it. You did videos about it. Even in the case of Camilla Tominey, she even had like other families who've lived and grew up with alcoholic parents. They did like a round table thing, and it's on BBC. You know what I mean?
But she did it to get paid. Like this, they do these things. Like you made a good point. They all have this hurt background, traumatic childhood, but yet they're not willing to deal with it. They have this upper stiff lip thing going on, but they would talk about it if it's going to generate income.
Exactly.
Right.
And then
they'll write books about it and do all this roundtable. But if you truly want to be healed, you will, because revenge and humility, or what do you call it, retaliation and humility, or just antagonizing people with humility does not coexist. You have to really strip down all that horribleness and all the things that happen to you, so that way you can really be sincere. And when you're sincere, there's some sort of humility that comes with it, right? And when you're really work through the things that you've worked through, there's this humility that comes, and you can able to relate to other people. That is why, in the movie, we'll talk about it later, but Zach Williams and even Prince Harry was talking about how helping others help them, right? So that's what comes out of that. But you cannot be evil and antagonize people and then you say, woe me, this is what happened to me. You haven't dealt with it. You're not ready to deal with it, because if you are, there'll be changes.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. They're not at a place where they're able to deal with their pain. They may have written about it and all those things, but I think Harry dealing with especially this, because it's so raw and so real, it clashes against their British sensibilities of that stiff upper lip. Oh, no, I'm fine. I am dying inside and I'm tearing apart, but I'm fine.
I'm rotten inside, but I'm fine.
But I'm fine. You know what I mean? And they haven't to come up against someone who has the status and all of that as Harry, and being so real, it just goes against everything they were taught and everything they believe in. You know what I mean? Exactly. And so they are not able yet to deal with the real thing that is in there that is tearing them apart. And, you see, especially Angela. Unfortunately, Angela has become her mom. She has become that very thing that she hated in her mom. She has become that and is perpetuating that behavior. So I think until and I hope, even as evil as they are and has been behaving, I hope that they will take a minute to actually watch it and actually watch it and be able to, in my heart, I want to throw stones at them. But I know, as Harry said, what happened to you?
Yeah.
And I hope they are able to be able to watch it and somehow be able to get in touch with their pain, and so that they can be healed and really become better people.
Do you think they could? I feel like it's so hardened that maybe this could be a start. But I feel like they need more than this to change their way, because the moment they finish watching it, is either what's the next story to write about, right? What am I going to say to keep my job, so that way my publisher can be like, okay, good job, you wrote something really scathing, right? So that is what I think that would be. We hope not, but that's what we are sure they would watch it with that kind of critical mindset, something they can pinpoint or say that was wrong. But then that speaks to their character. That speaks to who they are and where they are, who they are as human beings, right? It's it's deplorable. But anyways, Prince Harry was really, really good.
Oh, Prince Harry's
Check
amazing.
him out.
He showed out.
Has showed up. Has had his leg crossed. By the way, with the same suede shoes that he always has. One of them. I was like, Has, okay, all right, we see you. You're not materialistic. That's okay, boo.
Oh boy, he is grown. And I think that too is what is really thrown off the British people. They still are seeing little Harry, teenage Harry, who is running around doing crazy stuff. And that's who they are. And that's who they've hold on to. This mature man sitting in front of them, they just can't compute.
Right. No, they can't. He communicates well. I mean, we already know that, but I think, for a while, they always presented Harry as somebody who is not smart, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what they've done.
Literally dumb.
Yeah.
He's not very bright and all of this stuff.
And I was like, the devil is a triple liar. Like, Harry is like on point. Like, I was like, oh shoot, what does that word mean? Let me go check this word out. But he was just like so articulate and in the conversation, leaning into the conversation with questioning and like just really bringing out answers from people. And at least when he was talking to Oprah, I've also seen the path forward. So I think I'm going back and forth on those areas. But even with just the docuseries, his vulnerability, his rawness, and when he was asked, at the end when Oprah asked him, do you think the reporters are trying to take control or whatever it is? Do you remember that question Oprah asked him? And then he goes, no, they're trying to, they're trying so hard, to take over the narrative because if they're afraid if they lose it, the truth will come out. And I was like, bingo, mic drop. He's not phased. Like at this point, I think the squad, we should not. And Tina has been saying this, and I'm quoting Tina on it. She's like, we should not be worrying about Harry and Meghan. Like at this point, they have established and have boundaries and they have a wall around them. If you come for them, they'll come for you. They'll release the truth, right? So in a way, the squaddies, we don't even need to pick on those the trolls. Like, no, you're irrelevant. Because this guy was just like, I was blown away. I was impressed. I was proud. I was just like, go, Harry, go.
And I think, like you said, it's like the quality of it, the quality of the series blew me away. And, also too, is that because also I didn't know, and, Oprah said it, and she's reiterated it again, and even gave him props in the way forward, that the global aspect of it, Harry pushed for that. That is Harry's.
That is so like, Harry. No. That is Harry. Harry the Truman.
That is Harry. I mean, the global, that is brilliant. I mean,
because
what would the show be without Fauzi?
I know. Speaking of Fauzi, man, I fell in love in Fauzi. I could adopt that kid if I could. I'm like, then I was speaking of Fauzi. I was crying the whole time because imagine, you know what it is, living in America or living in the UK or any other Western country that there's not a major war going on. You don't realize the trauma and the day-to-day life and death that's going on. Unless you tune in on the radio, you watch the news, or you read, go online. But there are people who are living in the US who do not have a clue of what the magnitude of refugees that are live displaced and going through so much trauma, right? And they still haven't processed what is happening to them because they don't have enough time to even process it. There's so much going on. This little boy saw his brother blown off. He said he couldn't find his brother's head. Like it
Head.
was, and I was just like, you know what that means? Like he was not willing to go there because he can't. I can't even imagine him trying to make sense of it.
That's why he smiles.
Yeah, that's why he smiles.
He's like,
But I'm so happy the doctor, the guy that was able to.
The therapist,
so there's a war. Yes, the therapist. Like there's a war going on, and in 5-10 years from now, we have to determine which one is going to win, right? Good or pretty much good or evil, right? Which one is going to win? And we have to take care of it now because that guy can grow up and be so angry, and nobody doesn't understand if he doesn't tell anyone, right? And he's going to react to things, and no one's going to know why he's acting that way. But imagine seeing your brother's head blown off into pieces.
Yeah.
And your mother crying.
And what is so, I think that the part that cut me so much is every time he smiles.
Yeah.
Because you would see that little boy, and I could see him on the street of New York, walking and smiling. Yeah. And you would, would never know what his trauma is.
Yeah.
If you saw, if you didn't know his story and saw that sweet little smile as he sat there, you would never know the trauma that child has been through.
Right. Yeah.
And that is, every time I saw that smile, my heart broke.
Yeah.
And not just him, his brothers.
No, so like there's millions of Fauzies.
Kids that are there. They're all little Fauzies.
Yeah, there's little Fauzies all over, and there's little girls who've gone through the same thing, or even during this time, that have been raped, right? And those are all traumas that's going on. No one is talking about it, and obviously, but yeah, it's huge. It's huge, and that's why when Harry said even this pandemic, he says this is going to last us from generations to come. The impact is going to linger for a very, very long time. Refugees also went through the pandemic, right? And you don't even know, and they were living in very close quarters. And so that's a whole thing. I think even when I was thinking about, I was like, wow, how do they even manage that? Because refugee camps is not a luxury. It's like you're close to each other. Man, that's something we should look into. I'm like, what was the infection rate and the death rate in those areas?
Exactly. And also too, it's like they're, not just the little kids, they're also women, pregnant women, young babies. They're, all kinds of in these situation and in the trauma, and we will talk about it in when we look at the charity that really helped actually Fauzi and his friends and all of that. But it's just, I think that Oprah, did one of them bring it up, or was I just thinking about this? But it's I was thinking
Oprah brought it up
about, all the, the little black boys that are running around, all of them, the police stopping them, the traumas of all, wherever they go, they're, the cop is there, they're afraid, or all of these situations, they leave the person that comes into contact with wounds. These are all traumas. These are all that plays on your mental health. And so how many of that is running around, without the, and you just see them as little kids out there and you don't understand. And when they, if they act out, then you look at the behavior, not realizing that it within that person, a trauma has happened. Something happened to them that is causing this.
Right.
And if we don't address those things, this behavior will just escalate.
Yeah. Black folks have PTSI for 400 plus years, right?
Exactly.
And so when people say why they react, why people react a certain way, it's generational trauma.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. So and that's real. It's not a joke. It's real. And even people of color, pretty much, right? So it really helps you to really take a step back, and so what happened to you, and even what happened to us as Black women, right? What happened to us? How just the way you're defined, the way you're seen, the way you are referred, what you're referred to. it's what happened to you, because if I come into a meeting or I go to a place and I sense something and I'm able to, because I know that's my lived reality, and I start reacting to it, and people start questioning me, oh, you're aggressive. It's like, you don't know what happened to me, hence my reaction. And something triggered that. And
Exactly.
so when you tell me I'm aggressive, then it triggers it again, because it's just another follow-up trigger. Then it goes
Right.
on and on and
Yeah.
on. And then God knows where it ends. But yeah, Fauzi really, really, really impacted me. I was just like, this child, there's many Fauzis around going on. And,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, we'll see what we can do on our end with the charities that we will talk about at the end of the show. But yeah. And then what else?
The farm
Oh,
where
okay.
people who've lost
Children. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that existed.
Mm-hmm.
That broke my
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
It really broke my heart. But it also helped me to see, and I think, which is one of the things with mental health, the stigma of, okay, you're going to a therapist, you're gonna lay on a couch, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
there's this thing that there's just one way of getting help. And I think one of the things I appreciated with this series is just all the myriad of ways that you can go and get help,
Yeah.
And I never would have imagined that there existed a farm where people go with it's like broken people
Yeah.
going with and just being with animals who are also broken, who've also gone through trauma.
Yeah.
And it's like the animals know.
Exactly.
I remember the
Yeah.
gentleman was saying that the dog
The
the
dog,
dog chose him.
yes. Yeah, when he came back and the dog started barking and saw him and ran towards him, I was just like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
He just chose them. He's like, you go and the animal will choose you.
Yeah. That
And
was
it's like how it's just like brokenness, new brokenness.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
through that, accepting each other in that way, it's like you're helping each other to heal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it just, I will never forget that.
Yeah. Alex also stood out to me. Alex, the Martinez girl, I think she has schizophrenic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I could definitely, it's very close to home for me, a family member who has that. So, and being that person's life, being able to, you never, when they're off their medication, it's completely crazy. And then it's really hard to get them back on their medication, and just understanding how to maneuver through that. It's a task on its own for the caretaker or for the family member. It is a lot, right? But so I could relate to that on that aspect. But with Alex, it was just like sometimes you think you can fix it for the person, right? Because you're like, well, it's ABC, so just do ABC, and then you will go. Like, you've gone to school, you've graduated school, so you get a job, right? And then you wonder why she's not keeping a job. So yeah, so you think you want to fix it, and it's not about fixing it, right? It's a lifetime type of management where you manage it so that way the person can be productive in society, right? And it's not, because in our mind, you give a solution. Like, why can't I just fix this? This needs to be fixed, right? And so I was really, really glad to see that Oprah was like, it took her, she didn't get it, and it took her time to really just realize that this is not about fixing. It's about helping Alex to coexist with this and function the best way she can with this, right? And realize that there are triggers that will trigger her, so she needs to be aware of those. I think those are all the tools that I'm sure that Alex is probably getting or has gotten since then. But that was also really, it stood out to me, because in my case, I was like, well, just do X, Y, Z in that with the family member. Like, take this medication and you should be fine. And that's not it. It's not it.
Right.
It is something that it is within them. It is part of them, but it's not who they are. But since that it's part of them, they have to learn to coexist with that part of them,
Right.
and be able to still function in society. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Another one that stood out to me, well, a couple more, but Hussein Manawa.
His mom. Yes,
It's
yes.
so funny. Like the first time I heard of him was when he was in Harry and Meghan's podcast, the
Right.
Christmas podcast.
Yeah.
And then he actually did something with the other brother for Mental Health Awareness Week last week or 2 weeks ago, when they were bashing Harry during that Mental Health Awareness Week.
Right.
And he did a poem with them for their Heads Together thing. And
well, of course, they have to get him to do a work with them because Harry and Meghan worked with him. Okay, I got it. Gosh.
And oddly enough, the other brother, his line in Hussein's poem was, you know, let's not stop talking about it, or something like that.
But then tell your royal reporters to criticize Harry for talking about it. Okay. All right.
It's like, hello.
Infantile.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. That's why he's in trouble right now.
But Hussein's like it's so, and it's so amazing to see how the just the power of art, and be able to express yourself through your art or whatever creative outlet that you have is also a form of therapy. Yeah. Because it has helped him dealing with his mom's death, his mom's sudden death. Yeah. And it's just, that broke my heart. And you could see just the way, like, his poetry is not just words. You know what I mean? It's not just something that is just beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. It comes from it resonates from a deep place, you know, and I think that's why we're able to connect. Like, even there was a clip of his poetry and people are listening to it, and you could see them, how they are right there with him as he spoke, and they're like, you know, it's almost like they're saying yes.
Yeah, totally.
Because it cuts and it goes so deep, and I'm so happy that he's able to get it all out in that way, because it not only helps him, but there's so many people that won't connect with just talking to them. They won't connect with just writing. They won't, but they connect with those kind of verses coming at them because it cuts in a way. Yeah. And I'm not even all into poetry. And I was in there as being like, yes, Hussein, yes. Yeah. You know, and that's how much it's not just beautiful words, right? You know, because if you can impact somebody like me with that, who's not all that into poetry, then you know that there's something there. Yeah, that
he's expanded his reach.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm now into poetry for some reason.
Yeah, that's what Amanda Gordon did for me. I was just like, ooh, I bought her book. I was like, I haven't read poetry since I was in like primary school.
Same here. Well, college, because I had to.
Well, actually, you're right. College literature.
Yeah,
mandatory. Yeah. So I was like, ooh, I want a head book. I was like, let me get into poetry.
Who knew that is a form of therapy? That is
exactly.
And just like, who knew? You know.
Exactly. And then Glenn Close's family issue was also really touching as well. Because his sister and his sister's son both schizophrenic, right, and bipolar, I believe. But that was also really interesting. And the whole thing, I mean, we need to like move on to the next one, but the whole thing, Lady Gaga, you know, just talking about her abuse and her mental health. And then it explains why she was off from producing music for a while, and people were, what's going on with her? And she was constantly sick. She's sick, she canceled her tours. And, you know, like, you don't really know, because you don't know.
People are going
through, right? And, you know, being raped and, you know, gotten pregnant by this producer. And then, you know what she said that really stood out to me, and I hear her, where she said, I understand this whole Me Too movement thing, but I am not ready to talk about it, and I don't feel comfortable. She said, I'm not ready. I'm not comfortable. I'm not going to do that. I never want to see the guy again. I don't want to be part of, like, she doesn't want to do that. And I get her. I get why, right? she's not in a space to do that. She's not, because right now she doesn't want to deal with the guy. She doesn't want to even mention his name. She doesn't want to see him. So she's still on her healing process, right? And who knows if when she gets to a point where she wants to talk about it, even if she would, maybe she'll be like, I've gotten through it. I've gotten to a place where I can live with it, or I'm okay with it. So I don't even want to talk about it. I'm good. I don't know, but I hope at least she's told one person or two people, her therapist or somebody.
Yeah.
Because that helps. Just voicing that name, saying that name, gets it out, out there.
Yeah.
So that was.
I think everyone, we're all so different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like we are where we are. Some people they heal in a more private situation with just them and their therapist.
Right.
Some of us, because that's one of the things about, people are saying about Harry, like, well, why could you just be you and your therapist? Why do you have to tell the world? Why do you have to? And it's like, well, yeah, by telling the world, you'll help other people to, you know what I mean? Some people are okay doing that. Some people just can't they're not there. They may never get there, but we're all so different. And I think one of the things that's really, we talked about it in our last episode about Lady Gaga, and what was so infuriating about, just listening to her story is knowing what people like, say, Piers Morgan did when she first told her story about being raped in PTSD, that he abused her. On top of it, where she had to not only deal with the trauma of even talking about it, right? Because that in itself is traumatic. Yeah. Deal with people's, well, she is rich, so then she's fine. Or, we have bigger problems. You have all this money, you have fame, I have, she has to deal with that. And then she has to deal with people like Piers Morgan. Yeah. Attacking her, questioning her, where she has to then turn around and then take her time in the middle of her trauma to school him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what makes me so infuriated. And you see people like Glenn Close. Glenn Close is a big time actress, Oscar winner, money. She has all of it. Yet here she is with family members who have schizophrenia, this is real pain. And I don't care how much money you have in the world, what your status is in the world. People are in pain. And I think it's time that we just get over this, really. And this really gets me irritated whenever I go on Twitter and see this. Well, they have all this money and they have all this privilege. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How could they sit here and they did that to Chrissy Teigen. They did that to Chrissy Teigen. They do that to Kim Kardashian. They do. I mean, listen, you don't have to like them with their profession. That's fine. But when somebody comes on there and something has happened to them and they explain their pain, just because you have money and you have wealth or you're, all these privileges doesn't mean that you don't feel, you don't get hurt, you don't ache. So what about the path forward? We're just going to spend a few minutes just talking about that. Do you want to talk about some of the things Prince Harry talked about? Oh, yes. Go for it. Let's start off. So interesting because he's walking behind his mom's coffin. Yeah. When his mom died. And I think we could start from there because I think that's where the beginning of the trauma, apart from, other stuff in the royal family, but where it started. And one of the things that is, and he talked about it in the path forward too, when he was talking about Robin Williams' son, that was one of the connecting things they had, was walking behind Princess Diana's coffin. And one, feeling like sort of like an out of body experience. Mm-hmm. And then seeing all these people around him grieving, and yet he wasn't able to. Yeah. And then one of the things that stands out in his mind was the sound of the horse's hoofs underground. Yeah, underground. That was so, oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the British media and of the royal family are unable to connect the dots. Because like he said, when Oprah was like, oh, you only started doing therapy 4 years ago. And he was like, yeah, but you have to remind me that I'm not coming from a place where that was encouraged, right? So it wasn't until Meg
they had an argument, and told him to really get help, to see some therapy, get some therapy, rather, I should say. So it's really difficult that despite all the symptoms, right, and all the things that has happened to him, and clearly indicating that from his 28 to 32 years were like the worst. But guess what? There was the worst for him. It was the best for the media, right? The
And
royal.
isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Party boy
Harry, that explains his whole Las Vegas, shindig that he did. He was actually said he was going to Afghanistan the next day, right? The following day he was going to Afghanistan. So he's probably thinking, let me live it up. If something happens to me, at least I lived it up.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what his mindset was.
Yeah,
and he was going to do anything he wanted to do, and he's leaving the next day. But there was so much that was going on, turmoil that was going on in his heart, in his mind. People didn't realize it. Even if they knew, they should have known. But that's what I'm saying. How did they not know these things?
They knew. Well, going back, even when he talked about when he got therapy, he actually said, before he even got to getting therapy 4 years ago, he actually said that though he didn't name who the people, and I know from previous interviews, especially the interview with the Heads Together interview that he did with William and Kate, right, and then the interview that he did with Brianna Gordon, that right, William actually had told him, and he mentioned that a few times, that something isn't right. You need to see something. You should see someone. And so Harry did say, but here he didn't mention the names, but he did say exactly that. And he said, if somebody is going through something, don't tell them you should go see someone, because the first thing they'll say is no. They don't want to go.
Yeah.
And he actually did, because he did say he saw doctors, he saw a therapist, he saw alternative
doctors.
So he was, even though his initial was, oh, I don't want to do this, he actually did, because he said he said he saw. He wasn't ready. People.
He wasn't ready, exactly. But he just said timing was everything. He wasn't ready. Exactly. And he probably did it because they were telling him to.
Which is exactly the point. Yeah. And so, but even though he wasn't ready to really deal with his issues, something in there helped him to the point where when he had that argument with Meghan, he knew, okay, I need to deal with this. Yeah. Because, well, one, you just need to deal with it. And two, she's going to be gone. Woman. Yeah. Exactly. Meghan is not going to sit here and deal with my anger and let my anger come out on her. Nope. She's going to leave.
Nope,
you know what I mean? And he said, like,
Prince or not, she's gone. She'll be gone.
And so he's like, I wasn't angry at her. It was misplaced anger. And he realized, and even he said when he went to the therapist, she even said, like, oh, it's like you went back to when you were 12, and he got a little bit like, a little offended.
Don't call me a child. Are you calling me a child? Like, no, I'm empathizing the 12-year-old in you. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's so amazing. So, because I saw like a lot of people on Twitter got really upset because they thought he was just, totally rewriting history and not giving credit to the fact that he did seek therapy before. And I keep saying, no, he actually did say that. It's, it's very quick, but he did say that. And, and they brought up, well, yes, he did say it on Brianna Gordon. I'm like, yeah. Brianna Gordon also wrote an article in the Telegraph, and she also said that Meghan is the one that encouraged Harry to do the podcast with her. So that podcast that you just posted, it was Meghan that encouraged her.
Yeah, she just said, I read that. Yeah.
Brianna Gordon wrote that in her article, and I post the article. So
yeah. But, that shut them down.
Yeah. But, so they got a little offended with, thinking that he had just completely dissed his brother. But they did, they were part of it. He just wasn't quite ready. And I keep saying, there are layers to this. It's not a one-time fix-all thing. And I'm sure in the coming future, Harry's going to see something else, and then he's going to need additional help, to work
But he did say that. He said, was it him or someone said, you go through certain things and then you get to the same point and something else comes up again. And I think I was watching the news or somewhere, talking about it, and someone said, so right now you feel you're okay, but it's a continuous,
journey,
journey getting help, because 10 years from now, something else might trigger you, and then you're like, oh, okay, let me go back, reset, because it is part of life. We are living beings, and we, our emotions are ever so growing, and exploring different things, that we might just react to something and we're like, wait a minute, where did that come from? All right, let me go back and retouch, right? Because at this point he's done the work. It doesn't mean he's healed. It just means that he knows how to manage those things. And as a human being, which makes him imperfect, there might be things that will trigger again. And when he does, he's like, okay, I have the tools. That's why he has the tools to go back and use those tools to reset. So that is part of life. The other part for me also was when he said, talking about his dad, he's like, when Charles told him and William that it happened to me, so it's going to happen to you, basically get used to it. And he was like, no, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you even say that to your boys? Like, I mean, as far as I know, parents are supposed to, whatever they go through, most parents, right? Whatever they go through, do not want their kids to experience the same thing. They want something better for their kid. It's like, prime example, African parents come here so that they can provide their kids better lives. Caribbean parents come here, Asian parents come here, like all over. So their next generation will have a better life. And so they want to give their kids things that they didn't have, including, not beating the life out of your kid as they do in some, back home or in other countries, right? So they like, no, they communicate with the kid. They want to like, okay, what, there are other options. So for Charles to say, that tells you how disengaged he is. Like, he is not even, he's not being a father. He's not being he's not being a dad. He's not even connecting to his kid's pain. He's like, just deal with it. It happened to me, so it's going to happen to you. No, what if he could say, it happened to me and I'm not going to let it happen to you?
Right.
Because he has the power to say that. He has the right to say that and put into practice. Like, no, it happened to me and I know how bad it was, so I'm not going to let it happen to you.
And I think that's what Harry is getting to, in the sense of generational trauma being handed down. Because Prince Philip was, just get on with it. The Queen is, just get on with it.
That was his favorite word. Just get on with it.
Yeah. And so that's exactly that behavior is what Charles was talking about in Jonathan Dimblby's book. You know what I mean? And Prince Philip sent Charles to this school where he was literally abused.
Oh yeah, the Crown
Prince
showed
Philip
it.
bullied Charles. You know what I mean? He belittled him in front of people. I mean, it was horrendous. Yeah. And Charles was like, Charles is a creative. That's why, in Princess Diana, when they asked her, should he be queen, she's like, that would be very limiting for him, because Charles is a creative. You know what I mean? Prince Philip was this rough and tumble person that couldn't understand that his son was more into art and music and dance and all of those things. And so that old way of thinking just got bam, And so Prince Charles, because he is emotionally stunted and never have dealt with his own trauma, then he's like, well, it's happened to me. He's just literally passed that right on to Harry and William. William is that way now. And Harry is like, no, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, and it's this thing with the monarchy. It's like, you do the same horrible thing and expect a different result
across the board.
Yeah, it's the same horrible pattern that they're repeating. And it's not just in this area, in so many horrible areas, and they just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's just the way it is. And it's like,
yeah, you would think they'll learn with Margaret, right? Princess Margaret. No. And then also the Queen's cousins that were put in isolation because they have mental issues. Do you remember that? Yeah, like they were never to be ever seen again. They were locked up and they died, right? I think they all
they both died in the mental institution.
Institution. Yeah, left there, right? And then again, just think about that. They have mental issue in the family. Look at that. Yeah, and
even Princess Diana. She had like postpartum depression and all of those things. Instead of helping her, they used it as a stick to beat her.
Yeah.
What ended up happening? They labeled her and stigmatized her. Unstable, paranoid,
Does that sound
We'll
familiar?
get to even that thing, you know.
Sounds
And
familiar now?
oh God. Yeah. And it's like, it's the same pattern across the board, you know what I mean? And so when Harry's like, no, we have to break this, because why? You right now you're, oh, little George is so cute. Oh, Charlotte is so adorable.
Louis is so cute.
Guess what is going to happen if they don't break that stigma? It's going to go pass down right to those little kids.
Yeah.
The abuse, the, you know.
Well, who said it's not happening right now? Because right now, all the focus is on George. Charlotte and Louis are like second and third spares.
Exactly. They're going to be treating them the way they treat Harry, the way they treated, you know, Prince, whatever
Andrew.
his pedo guy, you know.
Andrew.
Yes, he did that. But before all of that happened, it's the abusive spare behavior where he became like the court jester, the one they mocked and humiliated to protect Charles. It's the same abusive pattern that is passed down. That the whole
well, they did to Anne too. Anne was like completely ignored. She did not even exist. You know what I mean? It's like that's why she kept to herself.
And so and if they don't address this now, that's why Harry don't want his kid anywhere near there. Because that is exactly what's going to be passed down.
Yeah.
And if you don't break that cycle, those kids, and it's already happening, like you said, they've already pimping their children out to the Daily Mail with those creepy calendars. I mean, whenever, you know, something happens and they know they're really having bad press, guess what? Pimp
Bring the kids forward.
Oh, of course. I can't imagine.
Served on a silver platter. Here are the kids.
Who in their right mind would allow their 7, 5, and 2-year-old, 3-year-old, whatever age he is now, in the Daily Mail? To have those creepy people putting a magazine with your children in a low-grade tabloid?
Yeah.
Who does that?
William and Kate.
That is just like I cannot imagine any person other than in the royal family who would do that to their children. I don't care who you are. I cannot imagine one British family saying yes. I'm going to put my 2-year-old in the Daily Mail.
You never know. They might. Listen, someone give them a good amount of money, they will. That
just gives me the creeps.
But the other thing that also just was really, really, really hard to take was Meghan smear when she was going to do the interview with Oprah, and Harry was indicating how the institution of the firm and the media were in cahoots to smear, do a smear campaign about her. How she was crying. I mean, this woman, I'm like, man, I wish they have another kid so she can have like a peaceful pregnancy. But each pregnancy, 3 so far, they had, they made her lose the second one. The third one, she's crying. Like, people it's like, God bless this woman. Like, her strength is amazing. Because it's like, what else do you want from her? Like, you guys are trying to, obviously, we all know now, they're trying to kill her. They're trying to kill her.
Harry said it. He's like, they're not going to stop
until they kill her. Until she dies.
That's the end goal.
And that's not going to happen. Not in our lifetime. Not in her lifetime.
We're not on our watch. Yeah.
Yeah, not on our watch.
The funny thing is, Valentine Lowe, who wrote that bullying article, what Harry was talking about, yesterday wrote an article and mentioned Harry saying that social media caused
I saw that. And I was like, you're such a liar.
I sent 2 very blatant tweet at him. Because I'm like, you, not social media. You were the one who teamed up with Kensington Royal to smear her. You are who she was talking about. Harry was talking about, not social media. Harry meant nothing about social media. He said, you in the British press are the one that's trying to kill his wife. That is what he's talking about. You are the one that smeared his name.
They get social media is also out there, but social media is not going to kill Meghan.
No, they're the one inciting their trolls on social media.
The trolls on social media get their information from the British press. Yeah.
How dare that? And I'm like, he mentioned what you did specifically. How dare you? You know? And it's like, I am so proud of Harry that he just like, you know what? You trying to do that in secret?
Yeah,
We're gonna talk about it. And
yeah.
I love the fact that he said the firm and the press.
The press, yep, exactly.
The firm and the press. So we know they're colluding, and they were the ones who colluded to do it.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Exactly.
You know?
What a shame.
And yeah. And then he talked about, Meghan's, when she had suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, you want to see history repeating itself.
My mother was dating someone who was not white.
Who was not white.
Yeah.
I
was like, go ahead. Go ahead, talk about it.
They're not going to stop. And he's like, they're not going to stop until she's dead.
Yeah.
And he talked about how triggering it is, because Harry was also a friend of Caroline Flack, who they killed.
Right. So that's why he said the list is getting longer. Yeah.
So his mother, you have Caroline, and there might be others. I don't know who else he's friends with.
His two ex-girlfriends. His two ex-girlfriends. They chased them out. So they might not have killed them, but they the loss.
Exactly. His friend who is here now, who they
Scott.
She lost her baby because of it.
Scott and Alana. Yeah.
It's like this girl, talk about a loss. She lost her baby because they were abusing her and him because they're friends of Harry. They can't get to Harry, so they abuse their friends.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
She lost her baby because of that.
Yeah. For something that was completely falsified.
Completely false. And the same Daily Mail reporter did the exact
same. Nicole something, or is it Nikki or Nicole?
I think this guy was a guy.
Yeah, I think his name starts with an N.
Oh, okay. I don't remember.
Look at it.
That.
He was the same guy who was like, he was the guy who called Alana the day before Harry and Meghan's wedding to tell them about what they were going to write.
And then use the picture of them looking really sad. That same picture. That's what they used in the lying article. How disgusting and malicious do you have to do that evil. To somebody?
Karma to him. I said to his on his Twitter account, that's why I can't remember his name. I said, you decided to destroy a family to make money to take care of your family, because he has a kid or has a family. I said, so you were willing to destroy another family for no reason so you can have money to buy bread and feed your kid. That makes perfect sense. Karma, you're gonna get yours. You're gonna definitely get yours.
And a lot of those people say, those reporters, they all have kids. They have families, kids. You think of Emily Andrews, you think of Becky, Elizabeth, whatever her name is. They all have families, they all have kids. Yeah. They think nothing. Camilla Tominey, they all have kids.
Yeah.
So and they think nothing of destroying somebody else's family.
And that's what Meghan was saying. They don't report the news, they create the news.
Yeah.
Right. So using Alana and Scott's picture while they were walking to the wedding was, okay, let's call them the day before, so that way their whole mood will be, ruined. Then use that picture, so then will sell perfectly. The same thing with Harry and Meghan's wedding. Let's hold on to the news from her dad, and release it the Sunday before her wedding, or the week before her wedding. So that way that will create commotion. So it's all effortlessly strategically done.
Yeah.
And to ruin people's lives for no reason. Now I can understand if it's the truth and you're reporting something that is true, then go ahead, speak about it. But to falsify, to create false narratives and then perpetuate that and then have people believe it and then make, create a whole, kind of like what Harry said, like in a Truman Show, create a whole thing and then sell it as though that actually happened. That's diabolic. Right. That's diabolic. Yep.
And that's why they hate Harry and Meghan now, because they're taking away any narrative they have.
Yeah. That's what I'm telling you. House is not playing. Yep. House is not playing. You say it, he says it back. He hits you right back.
Yeah. But I think another thing that was that really stuck out to me from Harry was he talked about feeling ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
the shame that comes with someone who, the shame for that person, because when they're having suicidal thoughts, and it's so funny because that has never been something that I had ever known that was associated with suicide. Because I think Meghan mentioned that, you know, when she felt ashamed. And Harry talked about him feeling ashamed because of how he dealt with it.
Yeah.
Because when they first talked about it, he said he went to a dark place. And then, you know, and it's this that feeling of, oh my gosh, how come, why didn't I know? I should have known, I should have done more, I should have, you know, and feeling ashamed that somehow you didn't do enough to, or, you know, you didn't made their life safe enough so that they would not get into that place. And it's such a weird thing that you'd feel ashamed. And I don't know, maybe just me thinking that, but that was one of the things, like, wow, I would have never associated those things, you know, with suicidal thoughts. Right. So I didn't know until they mentioned it. And then hearing the different therapists and stuff talk about the shame that that person who has suicidal ideations and stuff, that they would feel, and the people around them that they would feel. I never associated those two. So that was a big learning. I was like, wow, I would have never connected those two. Right. It's just the fact that the place where he is now, where, you know, they worked through and fought through so much. And in the end, talking about, he said, like, you know, I wish we had done this 4 years ago. He feels like now that he's in a place where that his mom would have wanted them to be, that, you know, he is so happy and feels her presence where he is, and they're at peace. And so for me, I just want that for them. I would just want them to, you know, continue to grow and stay at peace right there in Montecito with their chickens, you know. Awesome. And I really am happy that they have gotten and fought through to get to a place where they feel like I am at peace. So now I can, and I'm full, and I'm be able to give back and share with others so that others could be full as well. So I just think that is really awesome.
Well, we want to definitely talk about the charity.
Humanity Crew.
Yes.
And it's a Humanity Crew. If you've watched the Me You Can't See, that is the organization that is helping the refugees that Fauzi, that group that Fauzi is a part of. And so they are in Greece, I think. And what they do is that they really focus on bringing mental and psychological help and support to refugees, men, women, especially children. And they also work with, you know, moms and also when, you know, they have little babies. So they have things, for example, like shoreline specialists, I should say, men and women who are trained to help refugees when they literally come off the boat and the shore of the water. And that they have men and women there who are trained therapists that will help them to, you know, whatever their needs are, to help them to be secure, to know, because it is a traumatic experience. You get on those little dinghy things or these little boats crossing the ocean to try to get to safety, whatever the issue is that you're running away from, whether it's war, whether it's a volcano, whatever the issue is, you know, and you get to the shore. So they have mental health professionals and therapists there. They have mental health professionals who are also on, they are lifeguards who are on those boats, that some of the boat, you know, the refugee boats, some of them don't even make it. And so if they're out there and they pick up refugees, they have a therapist on board that could help, because how traumatic is that? You are in rough waters. You don't even know the country you're going to, if they will accept you, if they turn you back. You don't know. So those mental health specialists are on those boats, and that they can help the refugees. Humanitycrew.org. You can go there and find it. They really, especially if you see it with Fauzi, they have trauma classes for children. Yeah. One of the things they also do, which is very important, is they also have anti-bullying groups that they programs that they send to schools. Because when these kids end up going to a school, they equip the school to help the children to not target refugee kids. either, bullying, or, they have any kind of, attach any stigma to these kids. You know how things could get. So they really equip the schools around them to be able to help the kids who are at the school to not target refugee kids with bullying.
Well, they can find all that on the website.
Yes,
we'll leave
check
the
out
link
their website.
and definitely contribute to them. I would definitely look into it and contribute as well. Because I think it's, if Fauzi did anything for you, moved you in any way, then there's many Fauzis as well who equally move you and who need help. So let's go ahead and subscribe if you can. I know this is not one of our charities that we're talking about, but this could be. So if you can help, please do help. And
exactly. And I've seen many people have been supporting them. So that is really awesome.
That's fantastic.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I think this might be a 2-part segment because when we share them. So if it does happen, then you will see part 1, part 2, and maybe part 3. We don't know. But yeah, we've definitely hoped we've been able to give you some facts. You heard our 2 cents as usual. And until next time, au revoir. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.